out and out of breath because I've been lugging these hives back. So I'm just changing over the dead outs for new hives, and it's actually quite good because I can get in this apiary. You might remember I called this one Chestnut Land, and the guy who owns this whole forest actually reinforced the driveway here, or the access in, with like hardcore, so even if it gets covered over with mud and leaves, it's always really good. So long story short, I'm just out today moving things around. This is actually historically always a bit slower, this apiary, because there's not much around it. You can see the grass is less tall than other apiaries I've been in, and I've maintained this one well, and it was completely cut last summer. So the colonies we've got left are looking really good. There's, I think, 4 good colonies here that are all really strong. So I know it sounds like, well, just 4, is that it? That's correct. Out of all the hives I had nearly 18 here last summer for various reasons. Biggest one is obviously the pressure from Asian hornet. It was incredible here. The whole of this area, Pladiliac, where I am, was really, really bad. So, because it's vast, and there's no one, like, not even any gardens where people would put wasp traps that would catch hornets as well, things like that. And no one trapped in the spring. I did trap here in the spring, but obviously wasn't that effective. However, you know, we're just on the up now. I'm not even thinking about this. I'm going back home. I was going to drop these hives that are all cleaned and full of bees. I was going to drop them at the apiary up the road, but I went to drive in and couldn't get in. Luckily, there's actually a slight slope up to it. And as soon as the wheels spin and I lost it, I couldn't make it. I just reversed back with the gravity helping me, and then decided to abandon that because I knew when I came here, it was actually better because I could leave with hives as well as coming in with hives. So this apiary will be up to speed straight away. However, I have got to come back here with supers because there'll be a flow for the next week, but our flow is I went past some rapeseed this morning and it's a real dull yellow now, like the yellow on top of that box there. It's not that brilliant, blindingly yellow anymore. It's gone off, and that means we've got a week at the most, and I'm usually pretty right with that. There is other stuff. I mean, because we've had lots and lots of rain, and that's the thing. We have had a lot of rain, and I think that this summer could be brilliant. So what I've lost in the spring won't be a lot of spring honey, but the summer honey could make up for it. And isn't that just beekeeping all over? That we can be dynamic, work hard still, sort out our losses, and then still have a good summer flow. So I'm hoping that'll be the case. But this is a really good apiary. The bees are spaced apart well. They don't get any hassle from anybody. They don't get bothered by anybody. As much as it's a little bit dark in the winter time, and it's a little bit shaded in the summer, because the amount of chestnut around here it's unreal, you know. And the bees do well. Normally in a good spring, I had a really good crop here last year, and that is also the case, that when you have a really good year beekeeping wise, you often have another year the following year which isn't very good, or you don't overwinter your colonies so well, or something happens. And that's my opinion. It just seems that when you look at records of people's honey and stuff they have, a really good year doesn't necessarily mean your bees will overwinter well. So I'm not using that as an excuse. I'm using it as a learning curve and a tool to get better at what I do. And I think that's what we've all got to keep doing, is just keep pushing forward. I've just ordered a load of apivar for my nukes for the summer, and I'm going to probably treat 50 or 40% of my main production hives with apivar and cage the queens, and compare the two with proper results. I'm going to do proper results. I'm going to try and do a trial on just caging the queens for brood breaks like I do in my videos, and then versus apivar in the production hives, and see what the results are. It's a bit of an iffy one because I actually feel that even if you don't cage your queens and you still vape your hives 3 times at the end of the summer when the dearth is on, I actually feel you do a pretty good job whether you cage the queens or not. And I don't know if apivar is going to do as good a job. But what I might do, just for security and from my point, is I might vape everything across all my production hives 3 times during that dearth, but also vape the colonies that have apivar strips in. There'll be 2 strips per colony, which I feel isn't enough. I feel you should really have 2.5 to 3, but 1 strip in a nuke seems to work really well. That seems to be great. But what I'm saying is I'm going to cover myself and not risk not treating the mites. I'm going to see how many I don't treat in the colonies that are just caged queens to see how the oxalic acid works. Because I'm sure if I have apivar strips and vaping as a combination, if I can do that in the 3rd week of August, give them all the treatments, or even the 2nd week of August, let's not be too presumptuous here, but if I can do that and pull it off this summer, because there might be a lot of honey to pull, that's the problem. But if I can pull it off, but I've got somewhere to stack my honey now. That is the thing. I could easily stack my honey in my new shed and just cover it over, which is the bonus. I've got somewhere to stack it, and it won't crystallize into frames in the summer. So I could do that, and then compare the 2, get all my treatments in quickly, and then blanket vape everything. We just got to try things. I think you've got to be dynamic, open-minded, seize the opportunity. I know what I do works well in most years, but I want to know why it didn't work very well last year. So I'm going to try different things. But unfortunately, the cost of apivar, it's 23 euros for us per packet of 10 strips. Now, if you budget that in, that isn't a lot. But if you look at the amount of strips you need, that's 400 strips. That's how many packets? 400 strips divided by 2, that's basically 40 packets to treat all your hives. Now, but the cost of that is like over £1,000. And that's just my production hives, not including my nukes. I've got to look at the economics. I won't have a lot of income this year, but I've got income from last year's honey still, which is what we have to do as a beekeeper to have that reserve. You always got to keep, if you're supplying shops, which I'm just starting as well, if you're supplying shops, you've got to not oversupply. Okay, you've got to push yourself and stretch yourself a bit, but you have got to keep that continuity going so you can sell a bit in bulk, but keep enough to supply your local stores, because you don't want them running out, because the minute they run out, and if you're in a cutthroat place where someone else wants to be supplying that store, they'll just take them. You're just a number in most cases. So, yeah, there's a lot to think about this beekeeping life, and the more and more you get into it, there's no doubt if you didn't have a passion for it, you would have given up years ago. If you didn't have that, I love doing this, and it's great to be out, and it's a challenge and all that. If you took beekeeping on as a new job, I think you wouldn't even turn the key in the van to start beekeeping bees, because you'd go, do I really want to get involved in this? Because I sometimes think that. I sometimes think, should I really be doing this? Am I just pouring money down? I've got the new building. How far do I keep going? I now want to get even more stuff in the building. I want it to be absolutely fantastic. And I've got a budget and everything else. And, if I don't see the result of the money coming in the other end, is it really worth it? You have to ask those questions. But I'm just been a bit reflective this morning because I'm knackered. It's still moving hives out, but I'm not cursing the weather because we need the rain. If we get the rain now, it will keep that soil wet. And when the chestnut comes into flower in 5 weeks, mid-June, 6 weeks, it could be fantastic. But yeah, because the colonies I put, for example, into nukes, I had 25 queens come 2 weeks ago. You saw me making the nukes. So I'm actually transferring those, even though they've only just started laying, I'm transferring those into production hives because I want to give them room and that space to be kept clear for her brood rearing. These are full of eggs and larvae, which is making me very happy. I've just seen a little bit of capped brood. I haven't lit any smoke, and I know I shouldn't just say that, but the bees are really nice here. And these queens are absolutely enormous. They are in full lay. They've come back into lay really quickly. I bought these from Tenuta. I don't know if you can see that. Absolutely peppered with eggs. There's some brood there when she started laying, already being capped, and larvae underneath. So this is just a win-win, bonus win situation for me, because I'm obviously losing a lot of bees last winter. When I'm seeing this in new colonies I've made, it makes me extremely happy. Obviously all the brood is hatched out from before, but that's a new brood. I got them in at the right time. So warm, these bees. Shouldn't really be doing this with one hand, but as usual, guess what? I left my tripod at home because I wasn't expecting to be doing a video. Everything. I am just glad this flow's going to be over. I'm not interested in it. All it's done is given me masses of grief this year. Other years, it just fills boxes and we're all in time. This year, it's a complete disaster. Everything is on the point of swarming, but we've got cold weather and we've got a gap in it, and the flow is ending probably next week. So I don't want nectar like this. It's just ridiculous. And I know loads of other people have found the same this year in this area. It goes from like nothing to literally the tap being turned on, and it's pissing out the frames. When you shake the frames, it pours out all over your feet. That's fine when you've got a colony able to deal with it. But when you don't have the right configuration of bees in a colony, you've just got your spring going, and suddenly that nectar comes full on, it induces swarming because the brood nest is backfilled. That's just what we do not want. So let's get the rest of these moved off the truck, and then I've got to go back home because I've got some oil coming this afternoon because we nearly ran out as usual. I forgot to check the tank, so I better go home. But anyway, it's just to make a point. I'm trying to be economical. Hives in and hives out at the same time. Saves you time, keeps everything good, and you economize, you save money on fuel, and you're not doing 2 runs. But I'm going to have to come back anyway because I need to put supers on these hives that are going out because these are full already. They filled out the rest of their frames. They're on 10 frames, but only just. But they're all nice because I've got nice new hives that I've had in storage for like, well, 3 years. They're 3 years old, they've never been used. So I might as well just use them up and I'll clean the other ones out after. I'm using the same roofs. I mentioned this last time. Same roofs, same insulation, all that. But I've got a nice new base and a nice new hive, so I can clean the other ones at my own leisure as and when I need them. But they're all stacked up at the workshop, nice and tidy on a pallet, and I can move them around and they don't get in the way of anything. And these are being used and they're out the way and they're not degrading in a big stack, and me thinking, why don't I just use those? So all good. The funny thing about the hives when you bring them back is they're pretty light actually, and stupid cat thinks he can catch a bird, but he hasn't got a hope in now. Yeah, so it's actually great because now I've got this set up here. They're on the pallet truck, straight inside. Showing off a bit here, but you know, if you've got it, flaunt it. This is what it's all about. When you get them in here on this floor that's been polished, it's effortless. Both those stacks there are ready to be cleaned out. They've all been done. They still need to be burnt out, but I've used the roofs on the new hives, and that's kind of how the process I'm working. Those are still to be cleaned out as well, but these 2 pallets will end up full, and that should be the lot of it. But that's to be melted down, this stuff here. Just a process we have to get on with. Load them up. There it is. Well, I was just about to go out this afternoon to sort out some more nukes, but as you can see, this AZ hive has decided to swarm, and there's virgins everywhere. I've just seen one running along the wall. There's probably another one up there. Because it's been so cold, the colony's been getting ready, but it hasn't swarmed yet. So I think it was a first attempt swarm and they're all going to go back in. So I really need to go back in and sort all this out. Well, there we go. I've done this a few times before. You can see where it came from. Just there, the AZ hive. That ladder works really well. Nice bit of height. There's a box up there that's full of honey. Well, not full of honey, but it's got some honey and some oldish frames and a couple of new frames. And there's a swarm. Let's just drop them in. Well, that was pretty lucky. I've got a very bendy branch here. So hopefully be able to just shake these in. I'm gonna go down the ladder a bit before I fall off of it. Let's see what happens if we can see a queen. We can see fat, juicy drones. There should be a white dot queen in here. Whether she died or whether she has so we'll have to just see what happens. Can't be doing this all day, I've got work to do. I'm already 2 hours late. What can you do? So, one here. Looks like 2 there. But I might shake it into 1. Another one there, very pretty on the Vita Farmer trap. And 2 in the bush down there, and 1 big bird hanging from the tree over there that I'll never ever get to.